President Trump is back on the campaign trail this weekend as he doubles down on his response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Skylar Henry reports from the White House.
President Trump is headed west this weekend, kicking off a four-stop run in two key swing states, Nevada and Arizona. The president and his Democratic rival Joe Biden put their campaigns on hold Friday to honor lives lost on 9/11. In Shanksville, Pennsylvania,
we mourn deeply for the nearly 3,000 precious and beautiful souls who were taken from us on September 11th, 2001.
The former vice president was also in Lower Manhattan, along with current Vice President Mike Pence, where they had a moment of civility, elbow bumping with less than 2 months to go until Election Day. And he consoled a mother who lost her son on 9/11.
Lost mine. Never goes away.
Back at the White House, President Trump announced Bahrain is formally recognizing Israel, a month after announcing a similar agreement between the UAE and Israel.
I can tell you there's tremendous enthusiasm on behalf of other countries to also join.
But that bit of good news might be overshadowed as Mr. Trump is facing harsh criticism about what he knew and when about the severity of COVID-19.
It's a little like the regular flu.
While admitting in a March interview with journalist Bob Woodward for his new book, Rage, that he publicly downplayed it.
I wanted to always play it down. I still like playing it down.
Yes, sir.
Because I don't want to create a panic.
There were times when I was out there telling the American public how difficult this is, how we're having a really serious problem. You know, and the president was saying it's something that's going to disappear, which obviously is not the case.
Despite the pushback, President Trump justified downplaying the pandemic, denying he lied because he didn't want to incite a national panic.
For more on all of this, I'm joined now by CBS News correspondent Nikole Killion. Nikole, talk to us a little bit about the significance of Trump's visit to Nevada and Arizona. What do you think we can expect from the president in these states this weekend?
Well, obviously, both states, Nevada and Arizona, are key battleground states. So we know the president won Arizona back in 2016 and lost Nevada narrowly as well. So as far as the campaign strategy is concerned, they certainly want to defend the states the president won last time. And if they can, pick off others, especially where they believe they are in striking distance. As far as the message, I had a chance to speak with one of the president's campaign officials who told me that the president will spend the time here really touting his accomplishments over his tenure, whether it's on the economy, whether it's in terms of the judiciary, whether it's in terms of national security. But obviously, certainly all that is going on with the pandemic also looms in the background.
Nikole, there was some controversy in Nevada over the campaign's plans to hold a rally at an airplane hangar. What more can you tell us about that?
Yeah, well, a lot of that has to do with the ongoing pandemic here in Nevada as far as the impact that it's taken here. Back in May, the governor implemented a restriction on large gatherings so they can't exceed 50 people. And so earlier this week, we saw the Trump campaign announce a pair of rallies that they have since had to kind of reschedule and find other venues because one of the original venues, which was going to be the Reno Tahoe Airport, said that it could not hold the president's event there because it would violate these restrictions as far as having gatherings over 50 people. And so now the president will be addressing supporters from Minden, Nevada. That is a town near the state capital of Carson City. It's a different airport, but certainly one where, at least for now, the campaign is moving forward. And it does say that it plans to take safety protocols at this event, whether it's handing out masks to supporters or doing temperature checks.
All right, Nikole, let's talk about Arizona, too. It was considered solidly red for decades. Is the president's campaign stop there any indication that the campaign's concerned that they could lose it?
Well, certainly it is a critical battleground, as I mentioned, for both campaigns. Obviously, over time, the state is showing more trends potentially towards being a purple state. And so to the extent that is a concern for the Trump campaign, what officials have told me is that they do feel that some of these states are within a striking distance. We do know, of course, that the president has spent quite a bit of time in Arizona over the last couple of months. And so this is another event that he will be having specifically targeting Latino voters, which the campaign does feel there is an opening there. They feel that the president did well, particularly among minority groups last cycle, at least outperforming Mitt Romney back in 2012. So they do think that they have a chance to hold on to this state.
President Trump's also going to head to California. He's going there Monday, and he'll be briefed on the ongoing wildfires. Outside of that, though, we haven't heard much from him about how these fires have ravaged the West. Is there a reason for that?
Well, we did get a statement from the White House earlier today saying that the president, as you mentioned, does plan to travel to California Monday. He will be in the Sacramento area where he will be briefed by local and federal fire officials on the ongoing wildfires across the West Coast. The White House also says that the president has already declared, issued a disaster declaration for California and has been in touch with the governor there since last month. So certainly the White House giving the impression that it is taking this issue seriously, and that is part of why the president is planning this visit.
So President Trump often controls his own talking points, and he again took to Twitter today to suggest that supporters in North Carolina should vote by mail early and then go to polling places to check the status of their ballot and then potentially vote again. Twitter flagged the tweet for violating rules about election integrity. North Carolina officials have said that people should not do this, that they can check their ballot status online, and that attempting to double vote by going into a polling place after already turning in a mail-in ballot is, in fact, a felony. So why does the president keep pushing this as a narrative? And I'm wondering, and I don't know if you can speak to this, Nikole, but could Trump supporters actually get into legal trouble if they follow his advice?
Well, I think that's why you saw the North Carolina Attorney General come out pretty quickly after the president put out that tweet. And as you mentioned, say don't do what the president is directing and warning voters that it certainly is illegal if they attempt to vote twice, which is why he suggested tracking their ballots online. Look, as I mentioned, I had a chance to speak with one of the president's top campaign officials who told me that, I asked him, is the president confusing voters? And this campaign official argued that he is not, that the president was very clear in his tweet, and that the president is clear that he believes that voters should only vote once. That being said, certainly the wording can be confusing to voters. And the bottom line is that, again, if they're going to vote early and send their ballots in by mail, they don't need to then go into the polls and vote a second time. So certainly to the extent that that messaging can be changed, and I think that's why you, of course, saw Twitter flag the post, and again, why you saw the North Carolina Attorney General coming out to try to make sure voters are clear on their rights.
All right. Well, President Trump did have a victory on Friday, announcing a deal for Bahrain and Israel to normalize relations. Nikole, talk to us about the diplomatic significance of this.
Well, it is significant on a number of fronts. I mean, we know that the administration has been working to try to broker a peace deal in the Middle East, largely led by the president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. Thus far, as brokering a deal between the Israelis and Palestinians, they haven't necessarily been successful. But where they have been successful are on some of these deals with individual Gulf states. So we saw them, for instance, with similar actions with the United Arab Emirates, and then similarly now we see Bahrain normalizing their diplomatic relations with Israel. And so certainly the hope that some in the region think is that this could eventually help in terms of, Palestinians eventually realizing their goal of getting a sovereign state, although some in the region do feel betrayed by this latest agreement.
All right, Nikole Killion, thank you.
You bet.